Hi, bud.
Love you.
Love you too. I'm back. More about my books. Let's see. Where were we? Sometimes I do like crossover books in the universe that my kids and I kind of created together. Their characters will sometimes interact, and so I will write a series of stories that follows each of their characters from their perspective. So like Pingolina and the Tea Party, this one's from Pingolina's perspective. Then there'll be another book from Super Robert's perspective, or Tale to the Boxman's perspective. And the characters will each appear in each book, but it'll be from the different perspectives. Like that's Ronan's character, Ronan the Hedgehog. And in his original story, he gets married to a female hedgehog and they have 8 babies. This one, some of my stories are about parenting. This one's about parenting. But it's a metaphor. It's also about my garden. So I grew sunflowers one year, and all of my sunflowers, except one, were reaching for the sky like they were supposed to. One of my sunflowers bent over and kept trying to drive its face into the ground, and it was not doing well. And I was like, wow, that's really like a metaphor for parenting, because sometimes you do everything you can for your kid and they still make terrible choices. And it's so hard to watch them struggle. Eventually, my sunflower that was struggling and all bent and broken eventually finally turned its face to the sun and started to grow and started to thrive. And it did eventually come up, and it had this twisted stem that came up and around, and like I had set a chair out there for it to lean on, and eventually it did make its way up with the other sunflowers. And so I wrote a story about it, and at the very end I compare it to parenting. How sometimes kids make bad choices and they get there eventually. You know, don't give up. This one is my mom. She did this really goofy thing where she was trying to cook a pizza and she didn't have a pizza pan, so she cut it into different shapes to stick it into other pans. And she did this like several times with different pans, but in the story I made it even more ridiculous than it actually was. Like all she did was she kind of like shaved the edges off of it and like turned it into a different shape and cooked it all on a cookie sheet or something. But in the story, I have her using like any kind of pan that she can think of, chopping it into tiny pieces, and at the end of the story, just like in real life, I said, Mom, why don't you just use the oven rack? And she goes, oh, why didn't I think of that? See, my mom, she doesn't cook. She never did. She had me learn how to cook when I was like 4 or 5 years old, and I was terrible at it, but I had to cook things like mac and cheese, and I would cook it until it was mush because I couldn't lift the pan. And I took cooking classes when I was in middle school and high school. My mom thought it was hilarious that she didn't know how to cook. We basically just ate. She made like 2 dishes. She would make this thing with chicken breast and cream of mushroom soup. She would just like dump that together and throw it in the oven until it was like really, really dry. And she would like microwave hot dogs or make sandwiches, and she would make spaghetti. That was it. When I got a little bit older, her second husband would go and get car-killed deer, and they would make us kids like chop it up into small pieces, and then she would fry it, but it was like really dry, and she would fry it with green peppers and put it over rice or noodles. I still can't eat venison. It makes me gag. To this day, I can eat green peppers, but for a long time I couldn't. But it's kind of like a funny thing now. Like she never learned to cook. She has learned how to cook a few more things. My sisters get mad at me because they're like, well, you should have taught her how to cook. I was 4. How was I going to teach her how to cook as a child? I was the oldest. And my sisters are like, well, you should have just taught her how to cook. We taught her how to cook. I was like, you taught her how to cook when you were an adult. There's a difference. Anyway. But it's a cute little story. This one is called What If. My baby brother was a twin. His twin didn't make it. And I've always wondered what it would have been like to have 2 of them. And so I took some pictures of him. My brother actually walked me down the aisle when I got married because my dad wasn't involved in my life as a child. After my mom left him, I only saw my dad like 5 times from the time I was like 5 until I was 18. And so when I got married, I asked my younger brother to walk me down the aisle. My dad was out there, but my brother was the only consistent male figure in my life, so I had him walk me down the aisle. And so I took some pictures of him from when he was a kid and some pictures of him now. And honestly, my son Ronan looks a lot like my brother when my brother was younger. But I wrote this whole story like, what would it have been like if my other brother had survived? This was one of my bestsellers. It's called Boxes Can Be Anything, and it's about Tilk. Tilk loved boxes, and in the story, he turns the boxes into all kinds of things. Boxy Box Man, this was his superhero story, again, because he loved boxes. This one was for my nephew. His dog passed away, and this was one of the grief books I've done. I gave him and my brother several copies of this for free. And when I do grief stuff, I never charge the family a penny, because this is how I honor their grief. And every family that I've done these for said that these books and the paintings that I do are really, really healing for them. Unfortunately, I have not been able to put any energy into grief ministry like this since Tilk died. Instead, because anytime I go to draw for a family that's grieving, I can't do it. I break down. And so instead, I reach out to them and, how are you guys doing? Can I pray for you today? That sort of thing. Before Tilk died, I always knew that he was not going to live long. And so I studied grief, knowing that it was coming. And I wanted to help other families heal, because I knew someday I would be helping my own children heal from losing their brother. And also I just really wanted to help people. So when I do these are a labor of love. Sorry, that went from really light to really heavy. Sorry. Whiplash. Another one based on a game that my kids came up with. This one was about my twins who hated sleeping. And so in this, they're superheroes battling against sleep, but sleep is personified as bedtime sleepyhead. This is one of Ronan's first books. Ronan, the baby hedgehog. I think this is the 3rd one that I wrote in that series. This one here, I actually did not write this one. I illustrated it. My niece wrote it. And it's a funny and dark tale about the pig that wanted to be bacon, because all the big pigs were going to be bacon, and he felt left out. But he finds out that he didn't really want to be bacon, because being bacon was a terrible thing for pigs. Cows in the Basement. is based on a true story from my childhood. My mom's second husband wanted to have a farm. We did not have a farm. We lived in the city. So he bought 3 cows, 3 baby cows, and put them in our basement. I'm totally serious. This actually happened. He also bought a bunch of pheasant eggs and hatched the pheasants, but then my cat ate the pheasants, the newly hatched pheasants. My cat ate them. So he gave my cat to his nephew, who stuck her in a abandoned building. She got trapped in a vent. She was pregnant at the time. I think she ate her babies. I got her back, nursed her back to health. I was like 11 at the time. Nursed her back to health. She got pregnant again, and then I don't know what happened to her after that, because I think he took her out into a field and I never saw her again. But anyway, yeah, sorry, that got really dark again. That happens from time to time. Kind of have a really traumatic childhood. And I talk about it like it's nothing, because that was literally my life, but yeah, it's... Anyway, so cows in the basement. The cows were there for a few months. My sister had terrible asthma, and she was in the hospital quite a few times. And the doctor was like, why is she getting so sick? And my sister said, well, we have cows in the basement, and I'm allergic to hay. Nobody got arrested or anything, but the city was like, you cannot have cows in your basement. Fun fact, cows don't climb stairs. And these cows were pretty big by this point. They had to get a bunch of strong men to carry these, I think they were about like 6 or 7 months old by this point. These cows, they carried them up out of the basement. The basement had 2 sets of stairs. One went directly outside, and it was shorter than the one that went up through the house, so they took them out through the bottom ones. Now this basement got really gross in the spring because there was no sub pump, and like my mom bought this house for like $8,000 and it was already falling apart, and the basement was weird. The cement wasn't right. It was cracked. It leaked all the time, and it would flood every spring. Like, it would flood up to my knees, and I would have to go downstairs because my mom would make me do it, and like clean everything out of the basement when it was flooded. It was extremely traumatic. It was bad. Anyway, so they took the cows out of the basement, and at this point it was winter, and they took them to his sister's farm, which I don't know why the cows weren't there in the first place. And all of the cows died of pneumonia within a couple of weeks. One of the cows had a backward 7 on its head. It was a white 7, and we called him 7. One of the cows we called Spotty, and I don't remember what the other cow's name was. But I was in charge of bottle feeding the cows and scooping the cow poop out of my basement. I was like, how old did I say I was? I was like 11. Yeah. Anyway, this book is kind of a funny take on it. He wanted a farm, but he only had a basement, so he put the cows in the basement. The cows in the basement, feeding cows in the basement. How in the world do you feed cows in the basement? Pile the hay up high in the basement. That's how you feed the cows in the basement. Cows in the basement, growing cows in the basement, making a mess, those cows in the basement. When I wrote this, actually, my sisters and my brother and my mom thought it was hilarious. This is a garden snake. Naomi wanted me to make a book about a snake we found in our garden. It wasn't yellow though, it was a green snake. She wanted it to be yellow. What if everything was cats? This is also something that Naomi wanted me to make. So there's a cat tent, a cat burger. The man flu. This is a sarcastic one meant for moms. This is another one about feelings. You can see the art style that I did. This is about having to be strong when feeling like you're carrying the weight of the world. Choose your battle. This one is about like the concept of if we choose what life we have, when before we exist, and like God is like giving out assignments. And if I was given the choice of what life I would have, and I would choose this one every time, even with all the bad, even with all the trauma. And in the story, God goes through and tells her, hey, it's going to be tough. And she says, but will I make a difference? And God said, yes. And so she chooses that life. Every time she chooses this life. This is the one I did for my niece. This is the first one I did for Taylor. Pinkalina Princess Pie. Pizza Shark, that one was for Corbin. Toast. Ellie used to have the most complicated ways she wanted me to toast her toast. And I thought it was funny, so I kind of indulged her. And it just got worse the more I indulged her. She would tell me she wanted, I want my toast lightly double toasted, but not too much. Sometimes I like it burned, but with no butter. Other times I like it lightly double toasted on both sides, but not in the toaster. Like she would have me toast it like on a frying pan and then cut holes in it because like, you know, like eggs in a basket or toads in the hole or whatever you call them. I call them eggs in a basket. My husband called them toads in a hole. Our kids decided that they're toad eggs or eggs in the toad, whatever. So she'd want me to cut the holes in the toast, but not put the eggs in it. Overly complicated toast orders. This is another one I did for Teal'c. This goes along with it. This is Screamador Goes to the Tea Party, or Chaos Before the Tea Party. This one, this is my artwork, but not my book. My best friend, her name is Patty. We've never actually met face to face, but we've been friends for 20 years. And we met through the same publisher, and she got screwed over too, but I did the artwork for her book, and this is one of the first books that I drew. And she has 2 more, I think it's 2 more, it might be 3 that I've drawn for her. And I mean, we talk like almost every day. She's kind of like a mom to me. She's quite a bit older than me. This is a goofy one, Zork Visits Earth, just like an alien that comes to Earth and doesn't understand things, talks to the toilets because they think it's a command center, and just like goofy stuff. I actually wrote this when I was in high school, but I didn't publish it until 2015. This one, you can't actually get a copy of this because this one, I'd probably get copyright strike on it. Braytek wrote it. He wrote me as every superhero. And then to do the pictures, I actually posed for the pictures. I had him take pictures of me like running and doing like these different poses that he told me what poses to do, and I took pictures and then I drew it. This is from a few years ago. But he wrote me as every single superhero battling every supervillain that he could think of. Like everything from the Borg to the Thanos snap, whatever. And he had me as Doctor Who, and just like everything, so the police call box, Doctor Who, running through every universe. Had me as a Jedi, as Thor, and just everything to save my kids from the most like ridiculous scenarios. I thought it was so cute. This one I did for my friend's kids. She wanted a rainbow mermaid unicorn, and she couldn't find, her mom couldn't find anything, and like we've been friends since grade school. And so I made her not only the drawing, I made her a whole book. And then her mom took the images and made banners and t-shirts and everything. And she even took it, I drew the image like as if it was like 3D, and she took it and had it made into a plushie. It was so cute. This one is based on a game that my brother and sister and I used to play when we were kids. So we had this mirror, and it was dented, and I used to tease my sister and tell her that the dents were coming after her. And we made this whole game where we're like, oh, the dents are coming, and the floor is lava, but it wasn't just lava. It was like this green goo, and the giant is gonna eat you, so you gotta run away. But there's lasers on the doors and stuff, and like this whole like game that we would play out like all the time. And so I turned it into a storybook. This is one that I did for Tilk when he was diagnosed. Bunch of my first. This is the very first one. This is the very first 3 books that I did. I put them all into one. The very first ones. This one's about praying together as a family. Oh my gosh, like the hands look like they're on backwards. I was like, my artwork has changed quite a bit. Let me see. There's Robbie. And you can see it definitely resembles a very well-known character, but mine came first. The first time this was published was more than 20 years ago. Rainbow, flying rainbow kittens. This is one of Braytax's stories. The Super Dog from Outer Space. Cupcake and Pinkalina. This is Taylor and Naomi together. This was the finale of Robert's character, Super Robert. And Ella of Frau, the princess that was in his original dream. And I've got like a bunch of stories that we wrote about it. And then this is the final battle where they actually leave Manitory and come in back into the real world. And then this one is a goofy, sarcastic one that I read about Braytax skateboard. He was so excited about his skateboard that he joked that he was in love with it. So I have him marrying the skateboard and having kittens. Do you need me to...
It's probably the cooking one that you were tasting.
Oh,
So it has to cook out.
Okay, that's why it tasted a little weird. I was wondering what that was. Do you need me to...
No, I came back in because Corbin wanted hot dogs.
Oh,
So I'm
okay.
gonna put them on the grill.
Okay.
Come on, kitty kitty. I know how to give